Good morning and welcome to Nigeria Now, showing on your digital first Pan-African news network 2S television. As the show will bring you top stories, of course, headlines from the Nigerian newspapers each day. And today we have a couple of newspapers this morning. On the This Day newspaper, the banner headline there is talking about Buhari. El-Rufai is writing his history in letters of gold. And the writer says, vows never to let anyone impose himself on Nigerians. Of course, that story can be found on the front page of This Day and continued on page 10 of the newspaper. Underneath that story, we see Abdulsalami. Nigeria at crossroads, insist nation is bleeding. That can be found on page 12 of This Day newspaper. We have a couple of articles on that front page right there. But from the very top of the newspaper, we see NEC, fuel subsidy stays for now, but may be removed before year end. We have three riders. The first says petrol cost 100% more in neighboring countries. The second reveals that 2 trillion naira spent on subsidy in 2021. And the third accuses NNPC of failing to fund FAAC to the tune of 200 billion naira monthly in 2021. And underneath that story, Komolafe confirms NNPC as holder of ADAX OML licenses. That can be found on page 6 of This Day newspaper. Beside the picture of the day there, where we see some sort of a car gift being handed to someone, IMF proposes $50 billion trust fund to help low-income countries. That can be found on page 10 of This Day newspaper. I will move over to the Punch newspaper. From the very top, Port Harcourt refinery project 3.96 billion litres petrol annually, aviation fuel. And that's a report that's coming on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. And on page 9, reps order probe of allegedly missing 178,459 police firearms. That can be found on page 9 of the Punch newspaper. Reps order probe of allegedly missing 178,459 police firearms. And on page 8, Electoral Act faces delay at National Assembly, harmonization yet to start. We get that story on page 8 on the Punch. The writer underneath that story says, Senator accuses Bajabiamila of hidden agenda. Speaker fumes. And that can be found on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. Then besides the Punch header there, we see 51,392 workers change pension companies, move 190.62 billion naira. That can be found on page 20. And underneath that story, reps order probe of contract kickbacks, extortion by MDA officials. We can get that particular article on page 21 of the Punch newspaper. The banner headline there is talking about Abdulsalami, workers warn federal government as NEC decides subsidy removal June. Of course, that story is on page 2. We have three riders. The first rider says, petrol price hike will push more Nigerians deeper into poverty, warns ex-head of state. And then SSANU tells federal government, life already difficult for Nigerians, don't increase fuel pump price. Of course, that's SSANU telling federal government. And the council says there is 6-month provision of fuel subsidy. It will take a position after that. Of course, all of these comes after 6 months beginning from June 2022. Underneath the pictures of the day there, we see Buhari recalls Kaduna bombing experience. El-Rufai demands 7 billion naira reimbursement. That can be found on page 7. And an article there on page 7 as well. Assault on teacher. Ogun magistrate lampoons parent, orders remand of mother. Thug. That story can be found on page 7. And the Northeast APC legislators back Bello's presidential bid. Hailed Buhari. That can be found on page 18. Northeast APC legislators back Bello's presidential bid as the governor of Kogi State, and they hailed Buhari on the issue. That can be found on page 18. And on page 4, 129 terrorists killed, 64 arrested, 27 victims rescued in 2 weeks. That's coming from the defense headquarters. 129 terrorists killed, 64 arrested, 27 victims rescued in 2 weeks. Of course, that's on page 4 of the Punch newspaper. INC Yoruba group seek to join CNG suit on Biafran agitation. INC Yoruba group seek to join CNG suit on Biafran agitation. That's on page 7 of the Punch. And last mile probes officer attack on commercial bus. Female passengers are injured. We get our story on page 4 and 5. Last mile probes officers attack on commercial bus. Female passengers are injured. And on page 18 of the Punch newspaper, an article there says, you transformed Lagos, do same for Nigeria. Niger governor tells Tinubu. You transformed Lagos, do same for Nigeria. Niger governor tells Tinubu. We move over to the Guardian newspaper. The banner headline there is, petrol may sell for 403 naira per litre as governors engage labour. We have a couple of others there. Federal government paying 24 naira per litre as subsidy on every litre of petrol. Federal government currently paying 241 naira, I beg your pardon, as subsidy on every litre of petrol. And then the second rider says, expected decision on subsidy removal in June, NEC tells Nigerians. And FIME says, governors not responsible for removal, PIA should run its course. And then NLC insists on February 1 national protest mobilizes labor across the country. From the very top of the paper there, besides the picture of the day there, we see court bars NNPC ministry from allocating crude to oil firm. We can get out on page 3. And then on page 4, Reps investigates missing 178,459 police firearms. Of course, that story is replicated in other newspapers this morning. Besides that picture of the day there from the bottom, prepare for uprising worse than #EndSARS. If you hike fuel price, Abdulsalami warns federal government. That's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. And then travelers stranded as airlines ditch US destinations over 5G rollout. Travelers stranded as airlines ditch US destinations over 5G rollout. That can be found on page 16. How terrorists try to kill me in Kaduna by Buhari. And that's coming on page 27 of the Guardian newspaper. And then our 2023 elections, Northeast legislators back North Central colleagues on Yahaya Bello. That can be found on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. On the Nation newspaper, the front page right there from the very top, Bello to Tinubu, you can take Lagos Fit to Abuja. That's coming on page 2 of the Nation newspaper. The writer says, Niger governor backs APC stalwart, ex-governor visit IBB. And then besides that, we see, thanks for linking me to your success, Buhari tells El-Rufai. We can get out on page 5. And Abdulsalami cautions politicians over fiery comment. That can be found on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. The banner headline there is NEC, petrol subsidy can't continue beyond June. Of course, that's talking about 2022. And then the writer says, decision on pump price belongs to NNPC. And no going back on January 27 protest, says NLC. That story continues on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. And besides that, just underneath that story, we see Atiku Saraki Tambuwal in proxy war over PDP ticket. That particular article can be found on page 4 as well of the Nation newspaper. And then the last 2 stories right there from the very bottom. WHO recommends lifting of travel restrictions. That can be found on page 27. And on page 6, reps to probe missing arms. That's talking about the police firearms that were missing. And then all of the stories can be found on the Nation newspaper. Just make sure you grab yourself a copy of any of these newspapers to read about these stories. And that's it on Nigeria Now today. Thank you for tuning in to the program. Don't forget, you can always be a part of our social media community at TOS TV Network on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And our website right there is www.tostvnetwork.com. Thank you again for watching. My name is Merciful Ajinmo. Have an amazing weekend and see you on Monday.